For 3 decades, Johnny Carson ruled late-night television with an image of effortless, cool, sharp wit and flawless professionalism. He was the unshakable master of the desk, the king of late night who could turn any awkward moment into comedy gold. But as much as Carson prided himself on control, live television has a way of throwing surprises that no amount of preparation can fully tame. And even Johnny, who built his reputation on being ready for anything, sometimes found himself caught off guard in spectacular ways. The first time it happened on a grand scale was in 1965, when Ed Ames, best known for his role on the frontier drama Daniel Boone, came on to demonstrate tomahawk throwing. A wooden cowboy silhouette was set up, and Ames launched his throw with precision. To everyone's shock, the tomahawk buried itself squarely in the figure's crotch. The audience roared, but what made the moment legendary was Carson himself. He doubled over in laughter, literally unable to speak for nearly 3 minutes, tears streaming down his face. When he finally recovered, he delivered the killer line, "I didn't even know you were Jewish." It was pure, unscripted magic. Johnny at his most human, letting go of the host mask and simply surrendering to laughter. Carson's instinct for the unexpected also shined when Don Rickles got involved. During a guest host stint in 1973, Rickles accidentally broke Carson's beloved wooden cigarette box. Carson mentioned the mishap on air the next night, but months later, he took things to an entirely new level. Learning that Rickles was filming his sitcom on a nearby stage, Carson grabbed cameras and stormed onto the set in the middle of a live taping, box in hand. Rickles, still in costume, looked stunned as Johnny burst in demanding answers. The audience, completely bewildered, watched as 2 comedy giants improvised pure chaos. It was a moment that showed both their friendship and Carson's willingness to toss aside The Tonight Show's rigid format for the sake of unforgettable television. Sometimes, though, the unpredictability wasn't funny. It was deeply emotional. Near the end of Carson's career, Bette Midler sat across from him on one of his final shows. After the usual banter, she began to sing "One for My Baby" and "One More for the Road" directly to him. For perhaps the only time in his 30-year run, Carson allowed his emotions to show fully. His eyes welled with tears as the lyrics about endings and farewells washed over him. When Midler finished, he kissed her hand and admitted he couldn't top the moment. It was raw, vulnerable, and a side of Johnny few had ever seen. Animals, too, often brought out the unscripted best in him. During one appearance by handler Joanne Steele, a capuchin monkey suddenly leapt onto Carson's head, tugging at his famously perfect hair. Johnny sat still, eyes wide, his hair being pulled every which way. When the monkey was finally removed, he deadpanned, "And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I prefer cats." The audience erupted, and once again, Carson had turned an unpredictable disruption into one of The Tonight Show's most replayed clips. Some guests thrived on creating unpredictability themselves. Steve Martin, already building a reputation for absurdist comedy, once performed his bizarre Great Flydini routine, pulling endless objects, including a tiny waving hand, from his zipper. Carson, trying to play the straight man, broke down in helpless laughter. Later, Robin Williams pushed the chaos even further. Williams never sat still, turning Carson's desk into a stage and firing off impressions faster than the cameras could keep up. Rather than trying to rein him in, Carson leaned back and let the madness unfold, smiling like a delighted audience member. The most unpredictable guests often pushed Carson's composure to the limit. Don Rickles, never afraid of sacred cows, once roasted Frank Sinatra to his face, calling him overrated and even grabbing his knee to beg for a ride home. The studio held its breath, but Sinatra cracked up, diffusing the tension. Another night, Dolly Parton joined Carson, and their playful banter turned into controversy when Johnny blurted, "I'd give a year of my life to peek under that blouse." The audience gasped and laughed, while Parton handled it gracefully. The moment produced an avalanche of viewer mail, proof that even Carson could sometimes cross a line. Other times, the awkwardness wasn't Johnny's doing. By the 1980s, Bob Hope, once a comedic titan, was appearing on the show with stale jokes and not much energy. Carson, ever respectful, forced laughter through gritted teeth as Hope plowed through cue cards. But his discomfort was visible, and afterward, he privately admitted Hope no longer listened to his audience. It was a stark reminder that even legends could lose their touch, and Carson's pained professionalism made it all the more unforgettable. Not all emotional moments were awkward. When Jimmy Stewart read a poem he'd written about his late dog Bo, the studio fell silent. Carson's eyes welled as Stewart's gentle delivery built to its heartbreaking close. For once, Johnny didn't deflect with a joke. He simply sat there, moved, giving the audience permission to feel with him. Animals struck again in the late 70s when Joan Embry brought out a massive Burmese python. As the snake slithered toward Carson, he leapt from his chair in genuine fear, backing away as the audience howled. When the handlers got it under control, Johnny adjusted his tie and quipped, "Somebody better check my pants." It was the real Carson, relatable, unscripted, hilarious. George Carlin once slipped in a clever dig at censorship during a 1983 appearance. Johnny caught it instantly, giving a subtle smile and quick camera glance that let the audience know he was in on the joke. Carson may not have been a provocateur like Carlin, but he respected sharp wit and loved when someone could outsmart the system. Some guests leaned into chaos with style. Dean Martin once arrived so deep into his drunk act that he nearly missed his chair, slurred through stories, and abandoned one mid-sentence with, "Ah, who cares?" It wasn't that funny anyway. The crowd roared, and Carson, knowing exactly what Dean was doing, happily played the straight man. Even Carson himself sometimes broke the rules. During a monologue in the early 80s, Don Rickles heckled him from backstage. Instead of ignoring it, Johnny stopped his monologue cold, called Rickles out, and brought him on stage early. It shattered The Tonight Show's structure, and the audience loved it. On other nights, sheer talent overwhelmed the set. Sammy Davis Jr., in a casual conversation about show business, launched into a lightning round of impressions. Frank Sinatra, Jerry Lewis, Jimmy Stewart, all flawless, back to back. Carson doubled over, laughing harder than anyone else in the room. It was a perfect showcase of Davis's versatility and Johnny's love for being surprised. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger got in on the unpredictability. In the 80s, when Carson asked him a question, Arnold launched into a long answer entirely in German. Carson had no idea what he was saying, but decided to play along, nodding thoughtfully and responding with fake German-sounding words. The gag went on for minutes before Arnold finally broke and switched to English. Johnny's willingness to go along made the moment hysterical. Across all these moments, whether laughter, shock, fear, or tears, what stood out wasn't just the chaos. It was Johnny Carson himself. Time after time, he proved that the best television came not from what was planned, but from what couldn't possibly be planned. For 30 years, he let America see him as more than the polished host. He let them see the man, laughing until he cried, tearing up at goodbyes, jumping in fright, or leaning back to simply enjoy the madness unfolding in front of him. That, more than anything, is why his legacy still looms over late night.